Hi there! It is June 17th, and it is time for a little garden chores for us. So, the first thing I'm starting with today is actually taking out the broccoli plants. It has been very hot in South Carolina, and honestly, it's too hot for broccoli. Broccoli does prefer cooler temperatures, and in my climate at the moment, it's been in the 90s, and will be for the foreseeable future. So I did go ahead and just cut all of those plants at their root so that we can prepare this bed for something else. Now I am going in here with some granular fertilizer around the plants that are remaining. There were some beans that I had planted interspersed amongst the broccoli, as well as a squash that's in this bed. So I fertilized those, and then I also added to the top a layer of black cow manure. This is a brand that I have used in the past, the past being the kind of distant past, I suppose, at this point. But the last time I had a garden in our first house, this is what I used for it. And I feel like I've always had good success. So that's what I got. And then because of the sort of unseasonable heat that we have had, I did decide that I would go ahead and mulch as well. And so this is a cypress mulch that I was able to just get at my local store. It doesn't have any dyes in the wood. So I don't know. I personally feel comfortable using it, so I am. But I did add a pretty thick layer of mulch all around the bed, maybe 2 to 3 inches thick, because I want to make sure that we have something that will help keep the, you know, maybe temperature of the soil a little cooler when it's 100 degrees outside. I mean, I don't know what plants really like that. And then two will help prevent the water that I'm adding to the garden from evaporating so quickly in the excessive heat. So that's what I was doing. And then we're pretty much going to rinse and repeat those steps with every bed. Not all at once, because it's a lot of work to carry the mulch and the manure bags up and down the hill. But here I am going ahead and adding that layer of manure to the bed with cucumbers and the winter squash. And I also added it to the container. I have a sort of shallow white container in the back, which houses two cucumbers that kind of lived when they weren't supposed to. They were being shaded out and way too close to other plants, but they refused to die, so I transplanted them there. And anywho, gave them the same treatment so that they will also be thriving. I have noticed in general that a lot of my plants in these beds, the sort of these six on the end, are quite stunted compared to what I would expect to see based on how long ago I planted them. So I am doing kind of a heavier fertilization than I probably otherwise would, because they're just not growing. And I think it's the soil that I filled my raised beds with. In hindsight, if I could sort of roll back the clock, I think I would choose a different soil, even one that was drastically more expensive, because what I can always do is say, okay, well, I'll only fill maybe three of the beds. And then when I have more money, I can fill some more. And I think that's what I should have done. But I didn't. So I just feel like all season I have been struggling to amend it enough for the plants to actually live. And that's been a very annoying endeavor. So I did decide I would go ahead and just carry, I needed to unload these bags from the back of the van. So I thought I would go ahead and just carry all of the mulch and all of the bags of manure over to the hill so that I could lay them out where they are. So each bed is getting half a bag of manure and a little less than half a bag of the mulch. Those were really big bags. And I ended up just not being able to use half a bag in one bed. It was just a little extreme. Um, but I did go ahead and carry those over before it got too hot for me to do anything. I can't understate how hot it has been. Um, and so it has made it a little challenging in the garden to really get some of my projects and things that I wanted to accomplish done because it has just been miserable. As soon as I go outside, I'm sweating. um, see, you can see there, I'm taking some breaks, taking a look around because it's just so warm. Really too warm. But I am glad that I got this project done, and now I don't have to worry about it. So, the other thing that I had gotten were these little pots. So, the grocery store that I like to shop at, the Lidl, they often have random stuff on sale. If you have a Lidl or an Aldi near you, I'm sure you are familiar with the like random stuff aisle. And right now they had those pots, and I felt that they were a pretty reasonable price for the size. So I snagged three of them while I was there. I don't know, I couldn't help myself. So I wanted to take those in from the trunk as well, so they weren't just floating around in our minivan. Um, and I gotta say, like all this back and forth, trying to get, big heavy bags unloaded and where they were supposed to be. It was pretty exhausting. I'm not gonna lie. I also did get a bag of Miracle Grow moisture control potting mix, um, so that I could fill my new little pots. I don't really know yet what I'm going to put in there. I might put some strawberries in one or two of them, maybe all of them. But yeah, I definitely needed some better soil, better than what I put in the raised beds to do that. So I picked that up at the store as well. Now we're on to a new day. And because I was tired. I was tired, okay? And so the first thing I'm doing here is working on weed eating the grass around the beds. This is something that is proving to be very time consuming for me. I am having to do it often, and my weed eater is battery powered. It takes three full charges to get the whole hill, so it's just kind of been a lot. But but it does need to be done. The main reasons are the taller grass attracts bugs, but maybe the bad kind, that will damage my plants, even in the raised beds, because the grass gets so tall it's going up and over, right? Two, when the grass is really tall, it obscures where my steps are or other safe places for me to stand on the steep incline. And I fall over a lot, and I don't want to do that. So that would be the second reason. And then the third reason are reptiles. So tall grasses could attract things like snakes. I've seen lots of frogs. I accidentally weed ate a frog. Um, skinks, lizards, other things, which are not inherently bad, but reptiles kind of freak me out. So I don't want them. I don't want anything to do with them. So I'm trying to keep the grass low, especially here in the heat of the summer, to prevent that kind of thing. But it is quite time consuming, and it does take three whole batteries, which is a lot to deal with. Um, it's time consuming for them to charge. It's just the whole thing. I'm not really feeling it. And then going behind myself and getting all of the grass that I just trimmed raked up. I had initially planned on using some of the grass trimmings and things as mulch in the garden, and I do still think that would be an okay idea. But what I noticed is that it seemed to increase the slug activity, maybe because the grass is nice and soft, and so it's comfortable to slither around on. I don't know, but I don't like that. So I think the wood will be a much less inviting environment for them. So I did get that accomplished on this day. Very excited to have that done. I decided to blow the grass clippings out of that bed actually just to make sure that it was looking good. And I think I picked some leaves that were a little diseased. These vernissage tomatoes, which are the ones there in the corner, they have really had some issues with disease. The leaves are not looking great. I mean, it's not damaging the production or the quality of the fruit, I don't think, but they're just not looking the best. So we'll see how the next few weeks treat us, but this might be something that we can, look at replacing in August instead of letting it ride out till the temperatures go down. We'll see. I don't know. But yay, got all that accomplished. And I did end up taking my scissors and trying to cut a little bit more of that tall grass. But it is a lot to cut it by hand, even with my little scissors, because I don't know, repetitive motion. Yeah, it's a lot. So then I got my little harvest basket out, and I decided we would go ahead and pick what we saw because while we're over here, why not? I love to, you know, harvest on a daily basis. I don't know anyone who gardens and doesn't love that part. I also recently discovered that those vernissage tomatoes can be totally ripe and still be green. So I think I actually did pick two that had blushed, brought them inside. They never changed color, so I thought, okay, I must have picked them too soon. But now, in hindsight, with this knowledge, I think that they actually were probably totally fine, and I just decided to pick them um, and throw them away because I didn't realize they were ripe. So, hey, I learn new things every day. I do have to get really up in there when I am looking for those cherry tomatoes because they kind of like to hide a little from me. But here I am adding manure to the bed that has onions and parsley and brain peppers. Peppers are in this. So, same treatment as the other beds, just getting a nice thick layer. I was tired after all that weed eating, had to sit down, but just a nice thick layer on top of these so that they will feel nourished. Um, I don't think and maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I don't think that I can really add too much manure to the top of this. I feel that that's a pretty safe additive. So I did do that. And now I'm going in with the mulch on that bed. Again, just trying to add a nice thick layer to it so that it is cooling the soil some from our extreme heat and also providing some moisture retention, which I desperately need. I need that. So, it's pretty easy to add the mulch to the beds. It's just the elevation is annoying. I'm going to continue to complain about that. Like, yes, I have made do, but the elevation is pretty annoying. So, I then decided I needed to work on adding some twine to some of the tomatoes since we are in garden chore mode. So I tied my two twines together and then I wrapped them all up into a ball so that whenever the one runs out, it'll just flow seamlessly into the next. And I'm taking the biggest branches on these Gardener's Delight tomatoes and I'm just trying to move them out of the pathway. Because of the elevation and my little stairs being there, I really do need to be able to move pretty freely between these beds. So if there's a giant tomato branch blocking my pathway, that's kind of a safety issue. I have fallen down quite a bit. So I definitely wanted to get that taken care of. I did decide to do a little pruning while I was at it, and I just used the empty black cow bag to do that. Um, and really just making sure that any diseased leaves that I saw at the bottom of the plants was getting removed. I don't want the plant to put energy into sustaining or healing or working on leaves that aren't working for it, you know? I don't need that. It doesn't need that. So, I just try and do what I can to make these tomatoes happy. And they have been so high maintenance, let me tell you. I feel that they have gotten the most of my attention, and perhaps the garden shows that because I had such stunted growth over there on the other half of the yard. Um, but that's okay. We love tomatoes, and they are doing really well. I'm having to harvest every day, pretty much, just to keep up with it. So that's great. That is a great, 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 great problem to have. I'm very pleased with that. And there were some of those branches that were sort of impacting the other half of this pathway too. Not as bad, but what I now in hindsight think I probably should have done just from the get go instead of taking time to tie up individual branches was just wrap it around. Just wrap twine all around this thing, start to finish. I think that probably would have had a little bit better containment impact. But hey, maybe I'll do that next time. We'll see. So I think I did too find a few more ripe tomatoes and I just put them in my pocket so that I would have them for later. Also, during this time, I'm looking to make sure there's no pest problems. So I'm looking to make sure that the tomatoes don't have damage on them from birds. that there aren't any caterpillars or tomato hornworms on them, and just the general making sure that the health of the plant. When I'm up in there tying back stuff, that is like the perfect opportunity to just keep an eye out for any other problems that might arise. Now, what I will say for myself, in hindsight, I probably should have spread the mulch and the manure on these beds before doing all this because walking around on that plastic was not a good idea. It seems like a dangerous idea. I don't know why I did that, but I did. So, oh well, live and learn. Um, And here I am just looking carefully at the underside of these tomatoes. There are spiders that live in there, so trying to avoid that because ew. Um, and just really making sure that we are getting everything sort of tidied up and good to go. I decided to put my gloves back on because I'm adding now the manure to the bottom of this bed. I don't believe on this day I added the mulch yet, but I did at least want to work on making progress and getting those bags out from underfoot. Um, so I did at least add the manure, and I don't know, I didn't really want to do that with my bare hands. Um, could have, but I didn't. And I couldn't tie the twine with my gloves on because it requires manual dexterity that is not possible with thick, heavy work gloves. And here I am adding the compost to the bed with the white currant tomatoes as well. Just making sure that get everyone a nice healthy amount of stuff to flourish. Same Vicky, different day. So on this day I am going to work on putting out the mulch and the manure in several of my raised beds. So we're looking at right now. What is in that? Ah, yes, either squash or zucchini is in this. So adding the fertilizer first and then going in with the manure on top. And then we'll go ahead and add mulch to that. And I really do think this is going to help a lot in terms of helping these plants survive a little bit better. This is after work, so yes, I am wearing a dress. Would I recommend you wear a dress when you are handling cow poop, essentially? No, I wouldn't. But for me, taking the extra time to go upstairs and change, and that creates more dirty laundry, by the way. Just not really worth it when I could just go immediately outside and take care of my stuff. So that is what I did. I had maybe half an hour to work before the fam would get home. So I wanted to just take advantage of it. Anywho, the top bed that I'm working in now has the opposite. So if the bottom bed had squash, the top has zucchini, or vice versa. I did a bad job at labeling. I don't know what is what. But it doesn't really matter. They're in the same plant family, and so they're getting essentially the same treatment. Um, these beds also have marigolds in them, and they had some cress. I will say, as future Vicky speaking, the cress did not work out. It has since been pulled. It just didn't. I don't know. It just didn't. Maybe I think I waited too long to try to harvest or do anything with it. And we've had really extreme heat. I don't think it's a heat loving plant. But yeah, that was not, it didn't. So now I'm adding some mulch to the top, a nice thick layer, really to help with the moisture retention. Can't overstate how hot it has been. And I need that. I need that moisture retention in my garden. I feel like every time I look back at one of these, I'm like, oop, that's where I almost fell. I fall a lot. Uh, more than once a week. It's pretty frequent. And then just I wanted to use the rest of that bag, so I went ahead and added a little bit more here. And tucking it around all of the plants so that it would be nice and even. And then opening a new bag for the rest of this bed. One thing that is helpful about doing this before the plants get too big is that I can kind of be a little more rough with my application of the mulch. Like I just dumped it in from the previous bag because there's not foliage that's going to get in the way. I don't have to lift anything up and be too ginger with it because those plants are super small. So, hey, I guess huzzah for stunted growth in this one instance. So I decided to go back out after the kids were in bed and just, see what there was to do here in the yard. I did have some energy remaining, surprisingly. So, taking advantage of that, I decided to deadhead these marigolds to make sure that I'm not going to end up with 1,000 marigolds growing in this bed, especially after the fertilizer. And then I went ahead and fertilized the plants that are in here. Namely, that's going to be my watermelon and also, oh my gosh, my brain, the Brussels sprouts. And so I planted some beans in here as well. But honestly, I'm treating all of the plants in the same way. So it doesn't necessarily matter. At the moment, at least, what's growing in here. Hopefully, that's a good decision. I guess I feel partly too that in such a small bed, whatever I do to one plant, all plants are going to kind of feel it. Um, so, I don't know. Anywho, got my manure on there, and then I decided to work on pulling up some more weeds that I saw in the yard. The grass is really an issue. I need to keep working on that, but I will in time. Taking my harvest basket around just to see if there was anything available to pick. There really isn't, but I am saving some herbs here. That is thyme that's in that bed. So getting some sprigs of thyme cut, just giving it a little haircut before I add the manure and mulch to this bed. And then trying not to fall over. That's important. Always important to not fall over. Getting the gloves back on now that I am touching the manure again because I don't know, feels right. And I did spend quite a bit of time being careful in how I was spreading that around the time. I wanted to lift all of the sprigs and the leaves of the thyme plant, the branches. I don't know the best word, but I wanted to lift all that up so it wasn't getting squished. And then over here in this bed, I'm fertilizing the onions and peppers, and there's some parsley there in the corner too. And then I decided to just go ahead while I had the fertilizer out and just fertilize everything. So I tossed some on the ground cherries there. Um, and I did not mix in the fertilizer. I didn't do really much of anything to it. I just spread it out. And now I'm going back in with the manure on top. Similar to the beds with the squash, these peppers are so small that it makes it really easy. Not peppers, sorry. The okra is so small that it makes it really easy to spread. So I just dumped the whole bag in there and then I moved it around until I was pleased with how spread out it was. Now, I did not do that with the mulch because that is a very big bag. But I did go ahead and apply a nice thick layer to of the cypress mulch to the top of this bed. One thing I will say is that I was a little careful again around the time because I don't know, those plants are small, at least in comparison to the okra, which is tall, but it doesn't have a lot of surface area. I don't know. Hope that makes sense. Now I'm adding the mulch to the bed with the watermelon. And on this, I did have to be a little careful, a little particular. I lifted up each tendril of the vine so that I could put the mulch underneath. And then I lifted, put the vine back in place. I had to be careful not to like twist the plant or break off too much. I also did have to kind of lift up the baby watermelon itself and put mulch underneath. So just trying to be careful. I'm very excited about my baby watermelon and I don't want it to die. So, yes, trying to be careful and cautious on that. Then I went ahead and took my little harvest basket over to see what else I could get. I ended up harvesting some parsley out of the corner of this bed and just admiring. I stop and do that quite often, a lot of times when I'm tired. Okay, this was a long day. Long afternoon at least. So I decided I would go ahead and try to power through and get the black cow applied on the bed with the ground cherries. So similar to the watermelon, the ground cherries do have these kind of larger branches that I need to lift up and put underneath. So I was being a little careful while I did that. Also making sure, if there was any fruit that I got it and didn't cover it up. Because as the name suggests, when the fruit is ripe, it does fall onto the ground. So, almost fell there. I'm telling you, it happens a lot. Went ahead and got a partially open bag of mulch so I could finish that off and just getting that around all of my little plants. I love the ground cherries. They have brought me so much joy. So much joy. I will say I'm glad that the water issue is taken care of in the back, but it has made these really steep steps and drop offs there, sort of where the landscaped grass meets the rest of the hill, and that has not been so great. But beggars can't be choosers, I guess. So just gotta live with what I got. And yay, that's a whole nother bag. Done. Done. So now I'm lifting the mostly full bag on over so I can use that to finish mulching this bed. And it probably could have taken less time if I wasn't so tired, but I was tired. So um, this fertilizer was almost empty, so I decided to just go ahead and fertilize my little flowers that I have down there and some of my herbs as well so that I could put all of that in the trash. And I decided that I should probably water in everything. So I went ahead and gave everything a good little rinse down. Not a very deep watering, I don't think, but enough to at least kind of set in that fertilizer and start making it a little more available to the plants. At least that's my logic anyway. So here I am watering all of the beds that I worked on today and that container because the container just runs out of water so much quicker than the other raised beds do. I think it's probably just because the clear plastic makes it like a little mini hothouse. I don't know on the roots, but it definitely needs watering way more often. And I ended up watering some of those other beds as well. But thank you so much for joining me on my garden chores here in mid June. I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you are. And until next time, bye.